Now to our second speaker on opposition, Friso de Graaf. Friso is a fourth-year student reading natural sciences at Gonville Caius College. Friso, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Iman. Right, now we don't have a live audience here, so there's no sort of direct feedback. So I apologise if I absolutely bomb tonight, which I realise, if I particularly lose this debate very badly, might look like a very insensitive comment, and so would like to get my apologies in there early. We're dealing with quite an important, quite a serious issue here. This House would reenact the Gunpowder plot. But we've heard a lot about why we need to do this, but I wonder, has the other side really considered what it's doing? A brief look at the Westminster City Council's website, as I'm sure all of you have done before, will show you that such an undertaking, blowing up of the Houses of Parliament with vast amounts of gunpowder, will simply create a massive amount of noise complaints that the council will then need to deal with, drowning the council in paperwork for weeks, maybe even months. And this nightmare will mean that the council is restricted from doing other activities. And I think the other side hasn't really thought about this. And this doesn't even take into consideration the issues that blowing up the Houses of Parliament will have on parking. And I'm pretty certain that such an undertaking would fall under the purview of antisocial behaviour. Again, more paperwork for the local council. And I seriously think that there is absolutely no chance that anyone on the proposition benches will get planning permission for this. I simply don't see it happening. And there is so much more logistics that we need to consider. Catering for the explosives experts, sanitation for the crew, paramedics, payroll accountants, hair, makeup, rigging, lighting. The list goes on, and I seriously don't think that anyone has properly budgeted this. It's a lot to do to stage a revolution to blow up the Houses of Parliament, and we're just talking about it as if it's a fun walk in the park. And you know what? At the end of the day, maybe it is, but you need to think about the logistics. And I think there was an important ecological argument to be made against blowing up the Houses of Parliament as well. We see across the world a decline in natural habitats. Local and indigenous wildlife is going extinct. All across the world, we are losing biodiversity. And yet here in the Houses of Parliament, we have a unique set of biodiversity unseen anywhere in the outside world. Creatures like Dominic Raab and Jacob Rees-Mogg are not simply able to function in the Houses of Parliament, but able to thrive in the wood-panelled halls of the Houses of Commons. I mean, a man like Matt Hancock would be torn to pieces in the real world, but here in the House of Commons, they have an ecosystem in which they can truly thrive. And that is something that we should be proud of. A rich natural heritage in the United Kingdom that is under threat because of global warming and yet remains insulated from the ravages of logic and reason, and we should do our bit to protect that. Furthermore, it is a crucial area for scientific study for how natural ecosystems work in the real world. An almost perfect analogy of how a pack of coyotes acts in Yellowstone Natural Park can be seen in how the Tory party acts towards the most vulnerable in this society. Computer simulations have found that the actions of the 1922 committee during the last Conservative leadership election were almost a perfect analogy for how gangs of vultures prey on the carcasses of the dead and the dying on the plains of the Serengeti. So we see that there is a genuine and real ecological, environmental, and paperwork risk to getting rid of the Houses of Commons. And if we are to get rid of the Houses of Commons, what are we going to replace it with? Has anyone thought about that? What are we going to put our Parliament? A discounted Greggs? A spoons no longer serving pints? Is that really what we want to make our country for? Much has been made of what the parliamentary chamber should look like. A lot of people have, in the past, said that we should try and move out of this antagonistic one side versus the other side measure, the alienating atmosphere of Parliament, because it turns people away. But what shape will draw people in? A circular shape will exclude those members of society who believe themselves to be too edgy. If we have a triangle, how will the news media, with their dedication to showing both sides of any situation, reliably report on a situation with 3 sides? A shape with potentially straight edges could be accused of homophobia. No, I think rather than that, we should go for an institution which is alienating not just to one part of society, but alienating to everyone. The Houses of Parliament at the moment are a perfect example of a system that no one feels welcome in. No one is encouraged to be themselves, and that is something that we can pride ourselves on. Alienating to everyone. It is egalitarianism in action, and that is something that we can be proud of. Now, I understand that we are all here in lockdown, arguing over Zoom. And the government guidance is, as much as possible, not to mingle. It is to stay on Zoom. And if you must mingle, do so outdoors. So I can see the arguments that removing an indoor space like the Houses of Parliament, moving that Parliament outdoors, might be a force for good. But I think there is an argument against that. And that is, what we would do then is unleash these politicians currently contained within the weird septic tank that is the House of Commons onto the wider world. Here is a place where they can meet up and attack each other and try our best to keep the world running without their influence. But if we unleash them on the world, what great plague have we unleashed on the world that will vastly outnumber the tragedy that coronavirus has caused? So I think it is blatantly obvious, ladies and gentlemen, that we must oppose this motion. We must keep the House of Commons as it is, to keep the strange, weird, frankly broken life in there alive a little longer in a world that is slowly dying. Thank you.